concepts have been constructed socially, culturally, religiously. This is very important to make the students to explore things, because maybe they will be able to explore things that we haven't seen them, or for example we haven't explored them, or the other readers haven't seen them. They have been invisible, and we give this creativity and this chance to the students. And from that point, they will be able to explore new ideas and new themes. The second one is Critical Learning Theory by Paulo Freire. In his very well-known book, The Pedagogy of Oppress, which is about oppression, freedom, and so on, it was somehow influenced by post-colonialism. But when we come to the context of classroom, again, we have this oppression. For example, traditionally, teachers used to be the oppressor, students are the oppressed, and this dialectical relationship between them, how we need to overcome that dialectical relation by one thing, which is the freedom. And when I say freedom, I don't mean power or class management, actually the freedom of expressing ideas and the freedom of identity, of their ideology. Because every time in classroom, we need to tell the students that we are all human beings, no matter what kind of background we came from, such as like race, gender, class, ethnicity, religion, language, culture. The important thing and our duty as teachers, we need to make the student to question those concepts, not to be under the influence of those concepts. So this is very important. And from the name critical theory, it means to enhance their critical thinking. And if we give them the chance, the freedom to think and to express their ideas, then we make the students to think out of the box. But if we always tell them this is right, this is wrong, we never let them to think out of the box. They will be inside that box forever, because there is nothing like true or false, right and wrong in literature. It's all about perspectives. And when we lead the students to express their ideas and they exchange their perspectives, they will ask for more. They will question for so many concepts, even outside the context of classroom. In other words, if I summarize what I have just said in those theories, we come to two important points. First of all, students lead the class, not the teachers. In other words, is that the main focus here is the students, how the process of learning is going to be improved. Because as lecturers, our duty, our responsibility here is that to produce new ideologies, to construct those ideologies in which they always question about things. And through that, we come to the concept or this expression, lifelong learning. What do you mean by that? It means even after the completion of the course, this will affect the students in a way or another. For example, if they watch a movie, they will have a very different perspective from other audience. They will always try to create new stories, new meanings through the analysis they make as they look at the characters, the scenes, the conversations, the colors. Or for example, if they have a look at a painting. So they always try to have different point of view to create new story inside that painting through every color, shade, and line. So this is what we make the students to think deeply in any context, even outside the classroom. And then the other thing is that train your students to focus on question, not the answer. This is very important. You always make your students to think deeply about anything around themselves, not follow the rules and the traditions. Because our main goal in the literature courses, which is something very, let's say, new for so many people or readers, it's not about summarizing a text or memorizing a text, but actually it's about thinking and how to have this depth of knowledge They need to question about things and to look for the answers, not to see, well, this is the answer and I will follow it. I will follow these conventions. I will follow this rule. No, we want those students to be extracted from the social conventions so that at least they will be able to question about their identity, about all the social aspects that creates this illusion for us. This is about literature courses. Well, in order to do all these things, we need some techniques, and we have this. Of course, we have so many techniques, but these are relevant for literature courses. We have the PBL, guest presentation, poster presentation, snowball, and learning diary. Let's begin with the first one, which is the PBL. In some fields, we call it problem-based learning, but since literature is not experimental and we don't have any kinds of problem to be solved, so this is project-based learning. And what do you mean by project? It's like doing a research or writing an article. So basically, we ask the students, of course, it can be individually, in pairs, or in groups. We give them a topic, for example, in any course, it can be poetry, novel, drama, or, for example, they will connect two kind of theories, or they can analyze a theory and so on. Or, for example, in literary criticism or in literary theories, we tell them to read about it very carefully. Then they will analyze it. They will examine everything there, and after that, of course, I will talk about the analysis later in details, how to analyze literary text. And after they finish their project, they can publish it in an academic journal, or, for example, they will have a seminar or a workshop in a university, or they will put it on a poster and hand it somewhere in the department, or, for example, they can explain it for the rest of the students. This is very good for the students because in that case, this project-based learning improves their writing because they need to write a lot. It helps them to improve their reading skill because they need to read articles, books, some academic websites. So this is very good for the academic skills. And this is good if we ask the students to do this as a group, because they will learn how to work in a team and how to cooperate each other. Or we can also ask them to do this individually, because when they work on that individually, they will learn how to depend on themselves and how to improve themselves alone. This is for the project-based learning. The second one, this is very fun, the guest presentation. I believe that in every community, in every country, we have several intellectual people like poets, authors, or those people who work in libraries. So let's invite them into classes and have little talk with the students. This helps the students to see different perspectives, because maybe when they come to the class, I won't be the only one to impose my ideologies on them, but they will see other perspectives and they will have different point of view. So with those persons, when they come to the class, they will, of course, talk about their experience, for example, how they composed a poem, how they wrote a book, or those people who have been working in libraries, they will talk about their experience about those books, which books are very good for them to read, and so on. So it depends on the people that we invite, but in order to be systematic, it's very important for the lecturer to make it very systematic by scheduling a meeting with the guest before letting the guest see the students. And another important thing about the guest presentation is that when we invite the guest, if we have a real regular classroom, we ask the student to sit in a circle so that they will have this kind of freedom, and they exchange their ideas, they ask questions to the guest, and so on. And we can do that, of course, online. These days, thanks to technology, we can do everything online. The third one is poster presentation. Well, this one, it somehow looks like the first one, the project-based learning, but this one is limited on a poster, from the name poster presentation. That is to say, the students will of course, do their analysis, their study, and they will put it on the poster. This is very interesting for the student because besides what they do academically, they will design a poster, they will put some pictures there, and by the end of that, they can hang it somewhere in the department, or they will bring it to the class and they will invite the other students from the department, and they will explain what they have done on the poster. So from its name, poster presentation, it means instead of using PowerPoint, they use their poster to explain everything. The fourth one is snowball, from the name snowball, from a very small size to a big size. I think we always suffer that. We suffer from having these kind of students in class who are very shy, and they are not comfortable to participate and to talk. So this is a very good technique for teachers to overcome that situation. Basically, snowball means the teacher asks questions to the students, and they will think about it, they will write down the answer. And after that, for the second question, the teacher or the lecturer asks the students to work in pairs, and the pairs will be a group of 4 students. And after that, for another question, the group of 4 students, which will be 8 and 10 and so on, we make the groups bigger and bigger. And every time we ask them the question, we ask the students to give the answer among each other. In other words, we ask them to have a kind of academic debate and academic discussion among each other. So they will take notes, they will exchange their ideas, they will ask each other questions, they will see how other students think about that question. This is very good, so that we motivate all the students to participate in the class, not only some of them, but also the shy students and the ones who are not comfortable. This is very motivating. The last one I have here is learning diary. Learning diary is somehow different from the previous ones. And I'm sure there are so many lecturers now, they wonder what is the relation between learning diary and literature courses. Actually, learning diary, I have done that as a student and as a lecturer, and it's very beneficial. What is learning diary? From the name, it's diary. So you basically ask your students to write down whatever they have learned that day. For example, we explained a poem and we analyzed the poem. Later, we found some themes and we related that theme to some theories. They will write down that, but they don't write down what they have learned only. But in learning diary, they will reflect on the learning and teaching process. Actually, they will write down everything that they have in mind. Because if you go to the psychological aspect, of course, we know the students, there are always questions. They don't want to share it with us in the classroom. And in the subconscious mind, there are some hidden stories and ideologies they are afraid to share it in the class. So in the learning diary, I always tell them it's only you and the paper. So write down everything you want to say about that theory, about that poem. If you agree or if you disagree, or if you try to relate it to real life, to real social problem, just write it down, write your comments. For example, if I have said something negative in the class, or you didn't agree with other students' comments, write everything you want to express on the paper. So this is very good for their thinking process, their writing, and I call it just the students and the paper, or talking to the paper. This was about the teaching technique. What is very important is that we cannot do any of this if we don't do the core analysis, or the main important thing. The main important thing is that how to deal with literature. So if I can't do this, I cannot go to the techniques. First of all, I need to do this important point. Well, I provided this poem by George Eliot, I'm Lonely. It does not need to be only a poem or poetry. We can do this with short story, with novel, or with drama. Well, as lecturers, we have 2 choices: whether we teach the students traditionally, or we tell them to have authentic learning. First of all, let me start with the traditional learning. Well, this is like a common mistake, unfortunately, but I'm sure we will learn new things and we will learn the innovative approach to deal with literature, because they say literature is language. Okay, but literature is a way of using language, because through the rhetorical devices, we have so many ways of using a language through literature. So let me begin with traditional way of teaching a literary text. First of all, we ask the students to read the poem. For example, we have a poem. Here I have it. I'm lonely. We tell them to read it, but actually the way they read it is just like reading a magazine or a journal, because they don't have this kind of careful reading. They just make this scanning, and later we analyze the poem traditionally. And when I say traditionally, I mean in terms of biography or in terms of history. This is very unfortunate that we see so many readers, when they read any poem, immediately they refer it back to the life of the author. They say, oh, for example, this shows how the poet suffered from his childhood or from the social convention and so on. But actually, this is wrong. Because of some reasons. First, we cannot go back to the life of the author. We don't know what happened there. While George Eliot wrote this poem, we don't know what really happened there. We don't know what her experiences. Number two, because of intentional fallacy. What do we mean by intentional fallacy? We mean we never know what was the real intention of the author. While George Eliot wrote this poem, we didn't know what was going on inside her head. What was her real aim or real intention behind composing this poem? And the third one is that I can say history. There are so many poems have been composed during, for example, Victorian era. And readers always say, okay, this shows those social conflicts and social problems back in Victorian era. But can we go back to Victorian era? No, it was different time, and now we are in a different period. So we cannot go back to that time and see the real situations. And the fourth reason is that if we read a poem in terms of biography, history, or any other concept or factors, then we kill the essence of the language itself, because literature is not history. It's not the biographical book. Actually, it's about the way of using language and to see the beauty of language and what kind of stories have been hidden there. So we need to unravel the words to see the stories there, because behind every word there's a story, and we need to question that story. So what do they do with the poem traditionally? First, we said they read the poem. Next, they analyze it in terms of biography or in terms of history. Third, they see what others have said. In other words, the literature review. They have a look at the literature review, and actually they support their claims and their ideas. They say, Mr., for example, John said that. Yes, this is true. I say the same. And they just follow the conventions. And after that, we actually tell the students, well, in this poem, we had the theme of love. Can you please find it? Or, for example, can you apply this theory, the gender issue in that poem? We cannot apply a theory on a poem or any literary text, because if you decide that you already have a theory in mind and you want to apply it on the poem, then you are reading this poem psychologically and you are trying to impose your ideas on that. Literary text. You haven't left any space for yourself to explore new things. And by the end of the course, the teacher comes and they assess the students through a list of questions. And this was about teaching poetry or any literary text, summarizing the text. For example, and this is very common with novel and drama, they ask the students to summarize what they have seen. For example, in the scenes, in the conversation, they just summarize it and they say, this is what we see, the concept of love, revenge, life, without questioning. What about other concepts? Let's read this poem differently from others. So this is very traditionally. When we come to the authentic learning, from its name, authentic, it means to have the original analysis. This is the innovative approach for literature courses, no matter what kind of courses, if it's poetry, novel, drama, and so on. First of all, we ask the students to read the poem, but they need to read it very carefully and very closely. They need to read every word and to find the meanings etymologically. Why etymologically? Because those poems that we have, for example, they have been composed during the time of Renaissance or during the time of Victorian era, 17th century, 18th century, and so on. So it's impossible to have the same language just like that time. The language has been shifted from that time to this time. So during this timeline, of course, it has been changed, and the words have been changed and their meaning. So we need to know the meaning of the word back then and right now and compare them. So first of all, we need to tell the students, read it very carefully, find the meanings, and connect those meanings together, and also explore literary devices. For example, we have irony, imagery, and so on, how they serve the analysis and creating new meanings. Of course, the most important in this way of reading a poem is ignoring the historical background or the literature review or the biography of the author. It's not important whether the poem, for example, this poem reflects the real life of the author, of the poet. Maybe it reflects, but we are not doing this. This is not our job as readers to see how it reflects the life of the author. Our job is that to analyze the language, to see the language, because literature is all about rhetorics. So we want to, it's just like playing a game, it's just like a puzzle, and we want to see the beauty and the significance of the language, not the other or the external factors. And after they do their analysis very closely, after they see the meanings, and after that, they may find some concept, for example, social conventions, maybe love, gender issues, freedom, identity. Then when they find those concepts as the conclusion of their analysis, we ask them, okay, this might be related to some theories. For example, if they find gender issues, this is related to feminism. If they find class structure, well, this is related to Marxist theory, and so on. So, and of course, they are all related to each other in a way or another. And after they do the analysis and they see what kind of concept they have found, and they were related to those theory, and then they will go to the next step, which is to have a look at the literature review, what others have said, and then they will have their own argument. For example, when they see others have reflected on this poem in terms of biography or history, well, the students would write in their argument, okay, we agree with this, but we can find this concept also in this poem. We can read in this poem from different angle. We can add this concept. Or for example, they disagree with the other readers from the literature review, and then they will say, I reverse this analysis because I have a stronger one. Mine is the reverse of the previous one. So in that way, when we make the students, when we motivate the students to have this kind of argument, this academic argument, actually, indirectly, we are motivating them to be brave in their real life, to question about everything and to say no for so many conventions and rules. So we are really doing this, which is called critical thinking, and motivating the students to think out of the box, because we always tell them, make the connections where the connections are not obvious. So this is the end of my presentation, and I think I reached to the end of my presentation and my slides. Thank you very much for your attendance. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.